phone to talk with us. We've faced a lot of skepticism. I still think there's very good business to be built there. Dollar amount transactions, kind of similar to rideshare. So there's a lot of data to test with. You should be high leverage for, all the many indie game designers out there. We turned away from it. We realized that while the market is really fractured, only the big players really have to get precise with monetization. Up to a certain point, all that you are trying to prove is that you can sustainably acquire and retain players for a certain amount of days. And then you're making a lot of money off ads. So you're not getting really complex with the economy till later on. And at that point, gaming companies are largely engineering organizations. So they also don't buy a lot of SaaS, and they're protective and a little insular. So it was hard to get people on the phone to talk with us. We faced a lot of skepticism, but we realized this is just not going to be the one that we start. And when we flipped to e-commerce, we were interviewing some friends of friends who had stores. It was night and day how open people were and how they were here's my data. Here's the state of the business. Here, help me. They're just very used to.
They want to work together.
Getting solutions, getting leverage. So that we just were went from feeling like we were pulling teeth for every conversation to then just having a lot of fun doing these interviews. And so one thing led to another.
Hey everyone, Adam here. And today I'm chatting with Drew Marconi, the co-founder and CEO of IntelliGems. IntelliGems is a company that is allowing e-commerce merchants, notably within the Shopify world, the ability to master split testing. Another way to say that, it's allowing e-commerce merchants to increase their profits by testing dynamic pricing, testing free shipping thresholds, to name a few. And in my conversation with Drew, we talk about how the platform allows e-commerce merchants to be able to master this. We also talk about IntelliGems' early journey, pivoting from a gaming analytics company into what it is today. Drew talks about the journey of building a startup, which was once a scrappy startup, to a brand that's serving hundreds of e-commerce brands. Notably, in Black Friday, Cyber Monday, close to $500 million in revenue has gone through IntelliGems. If you're curious about how to turn raw data into real results, then this episode's for you. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation with Drew. And by the way, Happy New Year. Thank you so much for tuning into this video and checking out my channel. My goal is to share the real life stories behind entrepreneurs, technologists, creators, and share the hurdles, the successes of what it takes to grow. As we kick off 2025 with fresh business, professional, and personal goals, I hope that these conversations inspire you to start your year strong.
Nice to be here.
Why IntelliGems? Let's start there. Why did you start the company? You have an education, you have a background in educational studies. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a mouthful. I studied ethics, politics, and economics was the name of my major. So it was kind of choose your own adventure with the social sciences, but do some math on the side with the economics piece. And I made my concentration in education policy. So kind of everything from teaching to state policy to federal policy. But I did a lot of econ then, not expecting I would use it. I really did not like my intermediate microeconomics course. And that's now probably the course I've used most, because a lot of what we do is around price testing and supply and demand, trying to figure that out, a price elasticity. So yeah, was there, and then I started my career at McKinsey. So I was there for 4 years doing consulting for all sorts of different clients. Went to a ride sharing company called Via in New York, built the dynamic pricing system there. So everything from surge algorithms to, our discounting engine. I built that with my current co-founder, and we almost felt obligated to start IntelliGems. We loved
knowing
working
what you know
together.
Now.
Yeah, me and my co-founder just had a great working relationship. He's on the engineering side, but also quite analytical and strategic, and I can, be dangerous on the technical side. Accomplished a lot of really great stuff with this dynamic pricing engine. It was wow, this is actually incredibly powerful for the business as we started digging into it. And as the business grew, we got bigger roles. We weren't working together as much. The business kind of pivoted. We were doing less dynamic pricing. And so throughout 2020, we were just feeling like we wanted to work together again. We missed the dynamic pricing topics, just that was the most fun we had at work. We knew that was really powerful. And we were like, hey, COVID makes it not ideal, but he was moving back to the States from Israel and he was going to leave the company. I was starting to think about what was next and was like, if we don't take this opportunity to start something now, we probably never will. So like, let's do it. And we did not expect to evolve into targeting e-commerce. We actually, our approach was, we know a lot about dynamic pricing. Where can that be useful? We know a lot about experimentation. We initially thought it was going to be for mobile games. So we spent 6 months with that idea, decided to pivot away from it after a little bit of full time. Yeah, we joined Techstars.
Yeah.
Yep. And we got into Techstars with this video game idea. And by the time we started, we were like, oh, we actually don't like it anymore. And they're like, great. Yeah, we just think you guys are smart. Go figure it out. And then we stumbled into e-commerce.
What was the idea with the games? Just a quick high level.
Similar idea. Can we power like dynamic pricing, price testing, promotional testing in mobile game economies? Because, there's a lot of layers of transactions. You typically buy a currency, and then you can use that currency to spend on different items.
Like a Fortnite or one of those kind of games.
Yeah, yep. Fortnite or mobile games. So our thought was like, hey, they're high volume, low dollar amount transactions, kind of similar to rideshare. So there's a lot of data to test with. Should be high leverage for, all the many indie game designers out there. We turned away from it like, we realized that while the market is really fractured, only the big players really have to get precise with monetization. Like up to a certain point, all that you are trying to prove is like that you can sustainably acquire and retain players for a certain amount of days. And then you're making a lot of money off ads. So like you're not getting really complex with the economy till later on. And at that point, gaming companies are largely engineering organizations. So they also don't buy a lot of SaaS, and they're protective and a little insular. So it was hard to get people on the phone to talk with us. We faced a lot of skepticism. I still think there's very good business to be built there, but we realized like, yeah, this is just not going to be the one that we start. And when we flipped to e-commerce, we were interviewing some friends of friends who had stores. It was night and day how open people were and how they were like, here's my data. Here's the state of the business. Here, like, help me. They're just very used to.
They want to work together.
Getting solutions, getting leverage. So that we just were like, went from feeling like we were pulling teeth for every conversation to then just having a lot of fun doing these interviews. And so one thing led to another, got an alpha group, got a beta group, and then we launched the product in 2022.
Awesome. How long of a period, or how many iterations till you guys made that decision to switch to e-commerce?
I feel like we're still in that decision. We're never really done iterating. We never truly got out of like design phase in the gaming space. We had some mock-ups, did some like data analysis for people, but we never had code running. And we actually, just last week, we were looking back at our designs over the years for the e-commerce product. And I mean, we're on like, we release stuff every day, but I would say the current version of the product has probably fundamentally changed like 6 or 7 times in how it looks, how it operates, like big new feature expansions. So yeah, it's definitely a living, breathing thing.
Amazing. The company, you guys founded it in
December 2020. So like exactly 4 years.
In 4 years. What were the early challenges with you and Adam? What were you guys trying to figure out? Today, how have things changed? How do you think about that change over the last 4 years?
Yeah.
What are you focusing on today?
Great question. There are definitely chapters as a founder. I mean, in the first year was a lot about just the main challenge was what should we build? And one of the things that Techstars was really helpful in was they encouraged us to slow down. Like I really felt like I wanted to go start earning revenue right away. And they were like, you're trying to build a business with hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue. Go spend time validating that this is a good idea and understanding these customers and building your own case before rushing to get your first $1,000 of revenue. Because like there is some path you can always pivot, but there's path dependency when you have customers and do that. So that first year was a lot about like what exactly should we build and how do we find people who have a need? So that's like mixed up. You're interviewing people, you're like, where do you have pain points? Okay, we could solve that. Is that something we're hearing elsewhere? So it's kind of this melding between all these interviews and then eventually sales pitches you do with customers, and then what you're actually selling them. So you're learning where they have pain points, you're pitching things. You're like, how much would you be willing to pay? The second chapter was
Pause on that
then,
process.
yeah,
Real quick on that, when interviewing customers, how do you, I guess, sometimes what people say and what they do can be different. Like in the data, there's noise. What people say, there can be noise. How did you guys sort of make those conclusions on what to build, and sort of, how would you describe that process, or any sort of, how was your process during that time?
yeah. We just needed to get volume. Like we probably did 100 of these conversations. And so we were any way we could get creative with our network. People in Techstars who went to work at e-commerce companies, people who went to our schools who worked at e-commerce companies, friends, just LinkedIn searches, and then having all of our friends do LinkedIn searches and sending out favors. And, it's a hit rate game. Like not everyone's going to take you up on it. And then as we talked to people, it was like, can you introduce me to suggest 3 other people I should speak to? And now you've been on the phone with me. So you feel like you've helped me. So now you feel kind of bought into what we're doing. It's amazing like how successful that was to then go get another layer out in the network. And then treating those people as a network. It's like, hey, they've helped us. They have a vested interest in learning how this is going to go. So like weekly, we were building an email list, being pretty vulnerable in there, saying, hey, here's what we're learning. Here's what we're thinking. Feel free to reply. Does anyone know this? Like always asking for a favor in there. And okay, you have 100 people on this list. Someone is going to be able to do that favor for you. So number one was just getting volume. Like, and that was when I talked to founders just starting out, like that's step one. How can I get the right people on the phone? Step two, like what someone told us was you're ready to like start building when you can write the script of how the conversation's going to go before you have it. Like you kind of learn, you're asking the question and you know the answer you're going to get. That means that like there's a theme, there's like enough stat sig, putting that very lightly, that this is like a common problem. And I don't think it's worth being overly precious to start building. Like, yes, make sure that this is out there. There's like lots of companies like this, they have it. But ultimately, like when you start building, your idea is going to meet reality and meet like an actual customer need. And then it's going to change a bunch. And that's like, you have to start pushing the ball forward and like, being flexible and seeing what's working, seeing what's not, like iterating through that. So that was our approach. The other thing I would say there is we didn't give away anything for free. We gave away things very cheaply. If you give away something for free, there's no real commitment on the other person's side.
Yep.
And, I think it's important to see that people are willing to pay something for the product that you're offering. That could be even like $1, but like get the credit card on that call, charge them something that's just like infinitely more valuable than being like
100%.
Yeah, I'll do this for free. Like, okay, yeah, this may not be useful for me, but if you're doing it for free, great. Like, no skin off my back.
Yep. Validation through that initial couple bucks. And that's awesome. And also knowing your own value too, in physical products too. It's like pricing your product right. I mean, that's a lot about what you do, is finding that right price point. But yeah, it's like, it's having a value as a brand. And obviously your initial early supporters, they get the friends and family discount, and you try to build with them. And you want to give it to them for free, but you also want them to value it, to your point. Cool. Awesome, man. So going back to the roadmap. So you guys started the company, sort of the phases of evolution. Talk me through that. So initial user testing, ramping up. Yeah.
Yeah. First it was, hey, what's that going to be? And that was price testing for us. We realized, we were pitching advanced pricing algorithms where it's just, hey, A/B test prices for elasticity. And people were like, I want that. I want the simple version, which surprised us. We were like, okay, well, we'll build that. And, then we had a beta group of 10 users using this. And we realized pretty quickly that like just solving pricing, we changed the price of the product, but then the shipping threshold would be thrown off. Or we'd get weird results and be like, oh, we now have moved the product down in price and we're below the free shipping threshold. So we're hurting conversion. So we're like, let's support that. There's not an easy way to do that. So then in year 2, it was then more about, hey, how do we start to like flesh out the full like MVP? So like, hey, okay, price testing, I can run a test and get you some value, but like, how can the customer get value from themselves? Like, what's the whole stack? So like, oh, here's what should be on the analytics page. We'll build out the first version of that. Let's add shipping as a different test type and let people, use that. add in some integration tools so that we can support more types of sites. And that's like early traction. Let's get the first, go from 10 to 50 or 100 customers, see how many people we can get to download this. Still largely network driven in how we found people. And that process of fleshing out the product never really stops. Like, that's still a question we ask ourselves of, hey, someone's trying to improve their profit. They're an e-commerce store owner and they're using IntelliGems. Like, what other analytics features can we add? We think a key is running more tests. How can we make it easier to run tests and easier to diagnose if those are working? There are things like upsells that can drive additional profit. Should we add those on? So that process never really stops, but year 2 is like very, that we're really at the kernel. So it's very much about like extension. And then year 3 was kind of like starting to scale self-serve. So we rolled out some more new features or kind of content testing. So like test anything visually, which was a Google Optimizer replacement. Google shut that tool down. So we got all this demand, and that was able to be more self-serve. We rolled it out at a much cheaper price point. There was this big market need. So that really like unlocked a lot of new customers for us. And we were able to work with more agencies and use that as like an onboarding flow. So
it's a nice little tailwind during that time.
Great tailwind. And then you're like, how do we actually capture this? So it's a lot of like, we need a support team. We have to like, have better onboarding in the app. We have to monitor the app differently because like there's bugs people are hitting. We need to know about those. We went from, maybe 15, 20 people actually logging into the app in an afternoon to like hundreds. So all of the corners of the app are now being pushed by different people. And now, like we've closed some new funding and, we work with 1,500 brands. What's that?
Amazing.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the funding. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And what I'm thinking about a lot right now is building out our team for the next level. We kind of scaled really quickly and kept up, but the team was stretched really thin. I always think of it as like there's time we need to spend to keep the plane flying or, keep the train running, whatever analogy you want to use. But
build the plane while you fly it.
Yeah, it's like we got to
like
squash bugs, make sure that people are getting the enhancements they need. We need to do a good job of selling new customers. People come in and we have to educate them and make sure they're using the right features. We have to onboard them, make sure they're supported, have like great customer support. So that's all like a really big value of ours is to be helpful and provide a great customer experience. So that as you get more customers, this like keep the train running thing takes up more and more time. The second bucket is like reinvent the train. Hey, should this be maglev? Should this actually be a plane? Should this be a boat? How do we like
invention
add on new things? And
yep.
we come from a dynamic pricing background. There's a lot of interesting stuff we want to build there. We have a lot more analytics features. We think like I see us as in we're delivering 5% of the total value that we could deliver to customers. Like they're still so unoptimized. There's so little time spent thinking about testing and how to like extract the most yield from visitors that you pay for on the site. And so, you want to make sure you're spending time there and marketing. How do we talk about ourselves? How do we set our vision? And when you scale scale really quickly, like, we woke up and now 90% of our time was keeping the train running. And so where I'm spending a lot of time right now is how do we actually construct our team, bring on the right talent, bring on the right amount of talent, set ourselves up with clear vision and goals to bring that back into balance and make sure that we're still consistently innovating. Because, our ambitions are really high.
Love that. I was going to ask around culture. How do you scale culture in terms of, I was going to ask how you're spending your time. That seems like you're focused on that in the business. How do you scale culture? When you think about that, what are you doing to help scale that from those early days, small team, to growing the team, growing beyond the early founding team? What are you thinking about? And I guess, what are some of the principles you think that will make IntelliGems a killer culture? I guess that's not the right word, not killer. But
successful.
Successful culture, an outstanding culture.
Yeah. I mean, a culture that like delivers great product, great impact, and like attracts great people, I think is what I'm trying to do. So early days, we didn't need to think about it that hard. We had the benefit. I mean, if you can do it, the best way to scale culture is like hire people you've worked with before and who match your energy and you think like bring in the type of culture you want. So we were lucky that early on Me and my co-founder had worked together for 4 years. We brought on 2 folks who we'd worked with together on that team. So we had a really strong core for the first 10 people. Second, having values. Like I think I still want to make ours more specific, but like early on, it felt a little silly to be talking about it with just the 2 of us. But Adam and I, my co-founder, sat down and were like, what values do we care about? And those are still the ones we use. And I share them whenever I interview someone. We cover them in the onboarding process. We double check our goals to make sure that they are part of our goals each quarter. We hold each other accountable to them. Like that type of company values and thinking about how you work together, I think is really important. You need to like emphasize it. But what it can do is it can give you a shared language. So like if I'm giving you feedback, I can frame it in a way with respect to our values so doesn't come off as me attacking you or being defensive. Or if we're talking about a certain decision, we can like use the values to pull on that. So we've invested in that and invested in like kind of more softer things around some of our offsites. So like bringing in coaches and doing sessions on how we work together and, how we actually use the values. Third is you have to make sure that you hold it a bar for it in hiring. Like we've had people who were smart and were a yes on the smart side of an interview process, but like if they're not a culture fit, then like it's not worth it.
100%.
Because it's really easy to bring things down. I think where we're entering now, this phase, we're approaching 30 people on the team. It's on the leaders to talk about it even more. Like I need to be much more conscious about referencing culture, values, how we work together, setting that vision. It kind of happened more naturally when there's 10 or 11 folks. And 2, I need to like focus on training my managers on how to manage within our culture, because your manager is like the clearest way that you feel the culture. And then the third thing that's different now is like, I also have to be willing to let, like as the founder, you have to be willing to let other people put their own mark on the culture.
Yeah.
Like, you can't hoard it all. So that can be a little tricky. Like, as new leaders come in, like things evolve and it's different. That's a good thing. So you also just need to set the expectation with the team that like things are evolving. And I don't know if I have the right answer on that, but that's how we've tried to approach it. My hope is just if someone interviews with us, they're like, everyone there seems really smart and really nice. I want to go work there. Like that means our culture is in a good place.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. They say hiring it's art and science, I guess. There's principles, and it just takes time to build teams. And I think you said it well. It's hiring people that will then hire the next cohort of people.
Yeah.
But being rooted in values and principles makes it tremendous. It's super important. So I guess into next year, is hiring on scaling the company? You mentioned there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. Are you seeing that within e-commerce itself? Or are you thinking other verticals?
Yeah, still predominantly e-commerce. I think a big part of our success so far has been the focus. Like we just work for e-commerce entrepreneurs. We just work with e-commerce brands. We have the data you care about. We know how your business works. We have the integrations you care about. There are lots of other industries we could go apply this product to. But for now, we can like keep our growth rate, keep going just within the same space. So I'd rather go deeper versus try to broaden out and like distract ourselves. So yeah.
Focus. Cool. Misconceptions. I guess let's talk about like split testing for e-commerce businesses, smaller businesses. Like, I guess, let me ask it like this. What are some misconceptions, or what advice do you give to, or does the company give to businesses that are just starting split testing or may not be split testing today? Where common areas that they start? So from your experience for smaller e-commerce businesses, people that are just looking to get started, what are some of the common things that you guys are talking about with them?
I think the first conversation is like, hey, does it make sense to start split testing yet? And that's not a one size fits all answer. What I usually try to advise folks is like, do you think you have product market fit? If yes, then you can start scaling, and split testing probably makes sense. And for e-commerce, I think of that as, hey, you can profitably run ads and get people to buy this product, like, or at least break even with some level of scale. We could all probably want like make one sale profitably. Before that point, like I find split testing to be kind of like a distraction. You can spend a whole bunch of time building different page layouts or changing the product description or the product image. That doesn't really tell you whether people want to buy this. Like, I think early on that time is better spent talking to customers, understanding them. Like, it's not different than how I think you should validate a SaaS company early on. Like, go talk to people, get the pain point. You have a few purchases. What do they want? What do they respond to? And like, you can trust your intuition as a founder. Like, not everything needs to be stat sig data driven. Like, you're founding this company because you have some insight or hypothesis there, and like, it's okay to trust that. So once you have that cycle going a bit, yeah, go ahead.
Do you believe if you have intuition or taste, like that can kind of sort of outweigh data in some sense?
Early days, yeah. I mean, because like, say you're doing a couple hundred orders a month, maybe you run a test for 6 weeks and you still only get to 60%, 65% confidence levels. So it's like, you could wait another 3 months to maybe get higher confidence. You could trust 65%, which is like better than a coin flip, but it's still like a weighted dice roll. Or you could like trust your intuition at the beginning or at that point and like save time, go spend that time on other things. Like, when you're scaling, hey, yeah, if you can get to 85, 90% confidence pretty quickly, and you have people who can make these changes quickly, you have hypotheses you're going testing, then rely on the data, because like, you can make fast decisions. But speed is just this other element here where that your intuition like lines up with. Like, don't wait for data forever and expect it to like tell you what to do if it's early days.
Yep. Cool. So how many orders a month? At what size should you begin split testing? Just a little bit about us. Like, we've done split testing mostly through on marketplaces. Like, Amazon rolled it out, I think, in the last year on like PDP pages. Wayfair has an element of this. That's been our experience. We tried it on our Shopify. It just wasn't enough volume. Like, we kept, we were getting to your point where it was just very incremental. Like, it was hard to really determine a result. A and B, all the conclusions were inconclusive due to volume. So like, is there like a benchmark? I guess it depends on AOV, and there's some industry dynamics that are part of that.
Like there's a little bit of industry dynamics. There's also team dynamics. Like, is it going to take you a lot of time and a lot of distraction to set up a test? Or are you the type of person who like, you can set something up quickly and you can not check it constantly for a month? I think by the time you're getting to, your end for a test is going to be orders. I encourage people, like, don't run a test longer than a month. Like at that point, your data is getting stale, maybe 6 weeks. And we want to see ideally like 200 orders per test group. So, that means probably 400, 300, 400, 500 orders per month is where you can start thinking about it. The factor to consider is like, how many orders will actually be impacted on this test, right? So if you're testing your shipping rate, that's going to impact every single order. So great, all 500 orders per month are going to be part of this test. I see some people come in, they have 500 orders a month, but they want to test price on like their third best-selling product, and so that's only 80 orders a month. And so we're never going to reach any level of significance there. So you do need to think about like the field of view of your test, like how much of your business does this cover? And like, yeah, if you're at that starting volume level, like, go focus on tests that are going to impact as many sessions or as many orders as possible.
What are some common mistakes you see brands, large or small, make when it comes to like price testing and experimentation?
Good question.
Is it just not doing enough of split testing, or is it?
Well, yeah,
in some cases it can be too much testing. Yep.
Yeah, I've seen it in both directions for sure. The big one is like deciding to test and paying for a tool, but then not having a plan. So like, a test is going to give you insight. Like, it's a way to learn. Not every test is going to be a winner. You run tests over time, you will learn more. You'll create better tests. Your win rate should go up. Like, that's where your impact is going to come from. Like, the impact you get from a testing program is a function of your traffic, which is how fast you can run a test, the odds of success of a given test, which like, are going to be a bit less than 50%, depending on who you are. You can get better over time as you learn from losers. So like, that gives you how many winning tests you can get in a year, times then like what % of time you had tests live. So if you have dead time between tests, you're just wasting budget that you have for learning. So that's a big one. Like if you're going to do it, dedicate time to it. Second is not really having a clear goal or a clear hypothesis. Like people always ask me, hey, are my prices right? Where should I test? It was like, well, what are you trying to do? What's your vision for the business this year? And what does that mean in terms of goals? Do you need to grow your AOV to like make this business more sustainable? Are you trying to build out a new product line? Are you trying to just juice EBITDA as much as possible for a sale next year? You trying to maximize top line growth? You hear that less in e-commerce these days, but like there's all of these different goals you can point your pricing strategy at. But good pricing means nothing without knowing the goals you're searching for. And that applies to your general testing roadmap. Like go make sure that you're running tests with hypotheses that if they work will support your overall strategy. And like I find when people will try to avoid it because it's hard to think through your strategy. Like I'm avoiding it right now for IntelliGems in 2025. Like I have to sit down and write it.
It takes time.
Have a
It takes
whiteboard.
brain
It takes
power.
time.
Yeah.
But once you have that, it becomes way more clear which sorts of things you need to test, which funnels, which ad platforms, which types of customers, which products. So that's a big mistake is like just going in and throwing spaghetti at the wall without a strategy. And
we have
third is like,
ChatGPT as a thought partner, I guess,
Yeah.
for small businesses. That's a thought partner.
for any
It's like,
any size businesses, like
Yeah.
it's great for that sort of thing. Just feed it context. And then you have a whole record of your own thoughts written down as well.
Just keep talking to it. Yeah.
Yeah. I had to
Any
do a
practical
presentation
examples?
I had to do a presentation on dynamic pricing last week, and like ChatGPT was a great like writing partner for that presentation.
Love it. Love it. Any practical examples without naming customers? Can you walk me through an example of a brand? I'm not naming the brand or the products, just like anonymizing, but like, what sort of cadence they would set up of testing, what that would look like. Small, medium kind of business.
A good or a bad example?
Good example. Let's do.
Yeah. Like I'll speak about, it's like a skincare beauty brand, and our user there is super smart. They come from both a finance and a marketing background. So like they own the P&L, totally get how the P&L works, how that flows through. Also have been buying ads for a decade and have a pretty good understanding of the platform. They're more medium sized, so they're probably like low 8 figures. And what I like about
I have an idea
their
what this
approach,
is. It's one of a couple companies, but
yeah. What I like about their approach is there's always something running on new customer funnels. Like they spend a lot on ads. They have a high LTV product. Like if they can get someone in, a good chunk of them will come back. But it's beauty, so there's all these different varieties of products that may be right for you, and finding the right path to get a customer to the product, right products to recommend them, the right way to bundle those products to boost the AOV, to get more profit on the first order, which unless you go spend more on ads, that is like, there's always a test running there. And there's a roadmap in a spreadsheet with different hypotheses that the team can put in. They rate them according to like how much powerful they think they're going to be, their confidence. And then in parallel, they manage stuff on the site overall. So like, for people who come organically or who don't come through those ad funnels or are returning, they have a whole different testing roadmap. So around like the navigation bar, around product discovery, around subscription discounts, around pricing of different products or new product lines. So, they're actually, they have the traffic to run parallel paths of tests, which ensures they almost never have downtime between tests.
That's amazing. So a new customer versus a returning customer could see different site experience, but also could see different pricing on the same products. Maybe a lower price if I'm a returning customer.
It would probably be more in the form of like a different discount or a different offer versus like you get a different list price as a returning customer.
Got it. So it's more offer based. Cool. Interesting. So like, the dynamic pricing, to me, I'm kind of old school. It's like cost-based pricing. All right, it costs us this, shipping is this, advertising, we're going to try to hit this. That whole world has changed, I believe, from what I understand, into more of this dynamic offer-based, depending on where you're coming from, depending on your purchase experience, etc. On the consumer side, how is has their expectations changed around like pricing and like, yeah, I guess how is this sort of shift from both like the retailers? Do you see that shift happening in terms of like how to think about our e-commerce business? Is it just the cutting edge, or is this, do you see this sort of, do you see there a long way to go to other brands being more dynamic in their storefronts? It's kind of a
Yeah,
loaded question. Curious on your thoughts.
no, it's one I have a lot of thoughts on. Let me. So my main hypotheses are like customers are more tolerant of dynamic pricing than you think. The definition of dynamic pricing is actually different than what most people think of it as,
Tell
and
us.
brands are still very early days. Digging into that a little bit, I think it is inevitable that e-commerce becomes more and more dynamic. I don't see a path backwards. And if you look at, first it was the travel industry, then it was ticketing, then it was, ride sharing. There's just more ways in which dynamic pricing impacts our life as consumers. We've become more tolerant of it. And on the business side, it is like a no-brainer. The more effective you can be at meeting the individual or segments of customers where they are at in terms of willingness to pay, the more profitable you're going to be. You're going to be able to sell to people who have lower willingness to pay, expand your market, and also find higher value customers who will pay more. Now, I don't think dynamic pricing in e-commerce looks like surge pricing. And I think there's a common misconception that dynamic pricing is surge pricing. And we all like have our own, it's annoying. This morning, it was raining and I had to pay $100 for a Lyft ride to the airport. And that was annoying. Wendy's talked about dynamic pricing and people are like, what, is my Baconator going to be like $50? It does not need to be this type of surge pricing to be dynamic pricing.
So that's what I'm hearing. I get worried when you say
personalized discounts. Like you wouldn't be surprised if you and I got different DoorDash gift codes right now. You pop open, the Amazon app, you may get like offers on different products than other people get. New customer discounts are a form of dynamic pricing where I am taking a segment of customers who I think have different behaviors and giving them a different price point. So yes, it's not list price, but shipping, offer, subscription discount, clearance items, your welcome offer, any bundle builders, all of that is pricing. Any form of personalizing that to the segments is going to, like, if you do it well, be more profitable. Mm-hmm. So that, I think, tones it down for a lot of brands. They're like, okay, actually, I am comfortable with more of this. And I think we're seeing more and more of it, but I still think we're really early days of adoption. Like when I first started talking about price testing with brands in 2020, people were like, that seems crazy. I don't know. Like, is that safe? We've run literally thousands. We've had millions of customers go through pricing tests, through discount tests, through shipping tests. There aren't issues. Like, it's valuable data. And it's at the point now where it's almost like irresponsible to not be getting that data for your business. And, just in like, e-commerce has gotten a lot harder since we started this business in 2020. And like people have realized they can't take profits for granted and they need to go do this stuff. So we're seeing more adoption of bits and pieces, but like more is coming. More needs to come. And so I don't know, we're like trying to be useful for people and build stuff, but like kind of just be around the goal so that as dynamic pricing comes for the industry, we're there to like hammer it home.
Yeah. Awesome, man. That was helpful. That was a great explanation. It could be, I'm Whole Foods. I have extra carrots and tomatoes. Let me send a push notification through the app to let our customers know that that our loyal customers of these vegetables, to give them a pricing. Or we're a rug company. We have a great upsell that can go. We have new now rug pads, or we have this new cleaning solution. These are common sort of upsells in our category. Run a test with this new product. Or if you're a cosmetics company, you have too many of the lip balm and you can just kind of, it's like an overstock.
You do a free gift and like it encourages people to spend $100, but you're providing the lip balm you have too much of.
Yep. Cool. What do you think about free shipping? Where's shipping today in the mind of consumers? I've heard there's a gap. I'm not an expert in this, but there's a gap between like millennials. Millennials are a little bit more accepting of shipping costs versus maybe I'm a millennial. I want free shipping, but like the younger generation, Gen Z, Is that accurate? Like there's different generations, different perspectives.
I've heard the same. I'd be lying if I said I have any great data on it. Like we don't have age data for our tests. What we have seen is that blanket free shipping rarely makes sense from like when you test it out from a profitability perspective. Something like rugs or furniture, those are the spots where we have seen it actually work, where, you bake that price into the product, you bake the shipping price into the product price because it's already high AOV. Your shipping costs are probably like more linear than others. It's easy for me to put 5 lip balms in a box. It doesn't cost me that much more to ship versus like if I'm shipping chairs, shipping 2 of them, like I can't put them in the same box. So I'm basically paying shipping twice. So like because of that relationship, I kind of want people to pay shipping multiple times with bigger orders. So just lump it in and that's not a catch-all, but like high AOV, large items, we have seen free shipping work. Almost everything else, a free shipping threshold has been the most profitable outcome. Because, for the people who are spending a bit, they're maybe they bought a $60 item and your threshold's at 85. Yes, you will lose some people in conversion rate, but the people who just buy that cart, you're now going to get extra revenue from them, and that goes straight to your bottom line. It's revenue you wouldn't have earned otherwise because you were giving free shipping. You're going to get a good chunk of them to now buy the $20 upsell to achieve free shipping. So, you have a larger cart. That means more margin on that cart. Your shipping cost hasn't really gone up. And, then the people with large carts, it's a throw-in, and that's you were already giving away free shipping. So you have that, like, getting the extra revenue, but the bigger impact often comes from moving up those average order values. So there's a whole range of different tests you can go and get more granular on of like, what should I name this shipping rate? Should I have economy and then a 4 to 7 day or 3 to 4 day upsell? It's $2 extra. How should I like price my express shipping rates? There's all that is an entire like Pandora's box you can go into if you have enough traffic of actually optimizing the multiple options that you give to people, because there can be upsells within shipping. There can be like surprise shipping for new customers. Maybe you differentiate your shipping rate by location or by channel. But yeah, that's my general thought is like free shipping has almost never worked when we've tested it.
You talked about planning for businesses. Are there any tool? I guess we talked about like ChatGPT being a great thought partner. Are there any other resources that you guys provide or that you'd recommend people to check out when it comes to split testing? People that are out there sharing what they're doing, or online communities where people talk about this stuff. I don't know. Are there online communities that talk about split testing?
There are. So, well, one, we are launching an IntelliGems community. So like there'll be some CRO experts,
really awesome.
Some agencies in there. I don't know when this is going to release, but that's coming out soon. And people who, can share their test results and share test ideas. So I'll plug that, the IntelliGems community coming soon. Twitter has a lot of discussion around split testing and conversion rate optimization. I go on there, you can follow me and see who I follow and retweet, but I'm sure there's like lists. Has some great courses on A/B testing and conversion rate optimization that would recommend. And then our website has some resources both in terms of case studies, but then also we have like a whole test ideas section that we're continuing to build out. Yeah, those are the starting points. I'm sure there's a community on LinkedIn as well. I just haven't plugged into that one quite as much.
Cool, man. Appreciate that. That's great. Let's talk a little bit about technology.
Yep.
What sorts of technology power some of the stuff that you guys are doing? As far as you can get into that, just love to hear sort of what you guys are thinking about in terms of what sort of tech or algorithms, or what's that like at IntelliGems, and what are you thinking going forward with some of the new generative AI stuff? What's your thoughts on where that's going and how you guys are thinking about that in the tech roadmap?
Yeah, fundamentally, we're a data company, so that is where we spend a lot of our tech time, and we've been running off a pretty similar stack for the last 4 years. That is, we ingest gigabytes of data per hour, all in text events. We get every single page view, every single session, every single order, every single cart update for all of our customers. And so actually funneling that into one stream is like technical challenge A. Then you need to load that into a database. So we use Snowflake there, which is a different challenge. How do you load it? How do you extract the data and transform it into, pull out the values that you actually care about? And then we need to load that back into the app or analytics dashboard in a useful way. And the way we have that built right now, it's like one big hose, which has been very good for stability. We have like basically never lost data.
I saw your post,
at our
I think
scale,
it was on LinkedIn. I saw a post of yours on LinkedIn through Black Friday, Cyber Monday, 0 outages, and you guys processed like close to $600 million through the platform. That's amazing. It's impressive, man.
So it's like just a massive amount of data. The problem is like as you scale, like that starts to slow down. So, okay, now it takes us an hour to run the loading process into the database. That database is so big to run the queries that serve the dashboard and put the data in there may take 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 seconds, which doesn't sound that long until you're like sitting in a dashboard and waiting for it to load. And so that's been a big focus of ours. And, shout out Andrew from my team. We are completely changing the way that works using a bunch of like state-of-the-art tools. So this should be out for the new year, but the lag from me placing an order to me showing up in the dashboard will be like less than 10 seconds. And these dashboards will load sub-second, like basically instantaneously. So we will have like fresher, faster data than basically any other A/B testing platform that's out there. And what that lets us start to do then is like a lot of live use cases with that data. So, okay, great. We have live dashboarding. People can get their test results faster. That'll be helpful. You can debug more easily. But we can then start like transforming, querying, looking at that data in real time and doing other things with it. So as we think about different algorithmic use cases of, hey, let's change the experience for this person. Let's identify the pattern and determine if there's someone who loves promotions or is a high spender or whatever segments you have. We have access to that data and can start running models much more quickly to take actions on site. So like that's
and making recommendations for the customer, right? For the users.
Exactly.
They could be,
So it unlocks a whole bunch of new functionality in addition to a much better customer experience. AI, we're thinking about it a lot, I think as everyone is. Where we have found the best use cases for it is augmenting workflows and making them smoother rather than trying to invent brand new ones. So for example, naming a test. It's kind of annoying. You're trying to set up this test, and so you just go with the defaults. But then 2 months later, you're looking, you're like, oh, what was I actually testing on this one? Like, what was the hypothesis? Can't remember. And I get why people don't fill it out. Like, I hate filling out extra data that's not required. But hey, let's just like plug AI in there and say what you're trying to do. And like, you can edit it if you want, but great. Now people have much better data going back historically. Internally as well, just making our team more efficient. We deal with a lot of support requests. We have a lot of new customers going on. So like we've used AI a lot to like, basically we have a fully onshore support team to give them more leverage. So when they get to a ticket, all of the context they could want is there and summarized for them. And like potentially a suggested reply so the person can now go actually understand the case, update that, edit it. We don't want AI to just be like responding itself. Like I think that's a way to get good but not great results, and it's like ends up below the bar that we want. But we can make that same team a lot more efficient.
In-house tool?
So
or is that a combination of different tools?
Yeah,
for the customer service.
We use a tool called Narrow that's on the sales and success side. We're in some like betas for HubSpot, our CRM, on the support side, and then some like integrated ChatGPT calls to our workflows. So yeah, and then those are the ones I'm most excited about these days.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Implementations of AI. So what you described, just naming things, that's minutes a day or minutes weekly, that turns into hours. I love that Loom did something like that, right? Loom, you do a recording, it creates chapters, it names it for you. It's like, that just saved me 5 minutes. Well, on aggregate over the course of a year, I'm sure it's hours of of
and then when you go back and look
timestamp.
at the library, you have a better sense of, oh, that's the one that I meant to send. And so yeah, look, I'd love if you could plug in your site to a model and it just spit out, hey, here's the test to run, or even better, here's just what you should do.
Based on where you're at with
and
traffic,
we,
your
are
industry.
experimenting with that, but that's still, you end up with good, not great results. So it doesn't like solve anything for you. In some ways, it may give some inspiration, but we're mainly trying to like remove friction with it right now. While we keep trying to make that inspiration side better.
Awesome. I was going to ask this question earlier. If you had to recommend one thing for a business owner, one thing that a business owner could do today to improve their pricing strategy or set themselves up for success in the new year, what would that be? Sign up
Sit
for
down and
IntelliGems.
figure out like what your strategy is, like to what we were talking about earlier. Like, if you're SaaS or if you're e-com, like what metrics do you want to move? What's going to make the company successful? And then work backwards from that. Hey, what dominoes need to fall to get there? What can I test along the way? How can I like get data on this in Q1 so I figure out if my goals are achievable or if I need to like update them? But start with the end result you're trying to achieve and work backwards from there to build out that like testing and data gathering plan.
Awesome, brother. Two more. If you could go back to the start of the journey with you and Adam and IntelliGems, what advice would you give yourself?
I mean, I wish I skied more the first winter we were starting this, because I was like, felt like I had to be at the desk all day, every day. And in retrospect, like, we didn't have customers, we didn't have employees. I should have like taken advantage of that time, because now I have way more meetings than I wish I did. So that's one piece of advice, number one. And
no
second
matter
piece
what,
of advice, would have been like charge more earlier. I think I hadn't done sales before, so I just really wanted people to say yes. It's harder to raise your prices than it is to lower your prices.
Amen. Yep. Cool, brother. Thank you so much, Drew. I really appreciate you taking the time. This was great. I'll link up your socials. You're on Twitter, LinkedIn. Anything else you want to share?
Just the website.
IntelliGems.com.